Hey, hi. Today, very exciting recipe again, Iraqi cheese pies. These are on Cookidoo, so there is no need for me to print out and post the recipe. You can just go into Cookidoo and search Iraqi cheese pies and definitely save them to your recipe list because they are divine. Today I'm making them as a starter for a dinner, so I won't be serving them whole, I'll be serving them in quarters, but do watch, they're awesome. So we're going to be following guided cooking today. What that means is the recipe is actually going to come up on the screen and I will just be following the prompts. So our first step is to go with 50 grams of water. So I will weigh in 50 grams of water. Then the next step, I just press next. We've got asking for 170 grams of butter, which I will weigh in. Now with this recipe, I've made this before and I've tried it with 170 grams of butter and I've halved the butter. We prefer it with half. It's less pastry-like and it's a little bit more bready. So I am actually going with 80 grams of butter. So I'm making a little bit of a change, which does work, but you can try with both and see what works for you. Next one, I will weigh in 180 grams of milk. Then I will pop in 2 teaspoons of sugar. Then I pop in 3 teaspoons of dried instant yeast. Then we go with next, and we insert measuring cup into mixing bowl lid. Now you can see with guided cooking, it is so much quicker and so much easier, and I love it so much. So now we'll mix. This is 2 minutes at 37 degrees, which is yeast activating temperature. So the water will be brought up to the perfect temperature to activate the yeast without the risk of overheating and killing the yeast or underheating and not activating the yeast. Fabulous feature. See you in about 1 minute. Up for the heating of the water. So our next step is to remove our measuring cup. Next instruction is to turn our speed selector onto speed 3, like so. Okay, so meanwhile, add 2 eggs, one at a time, through the hole in the mixing bowl lid. So here is 1 egg going in, and then we have another egg going in. So that's 2 eggs going in while it's mixing at the same time. So that'll go for another 10 seconds and that will just incorporate the eggs nicely, and still really no hands-on time for me, which is nice and easy. So we've got 1 more second. Right, next step is 650 grams of flour. So I know you can't see the screen, but the scale function has appeared. So we literally just weigh in 650 grams of flour. So, oops, I'm popping that in to my mix. That is all step by step on Cookidoo and easy to follow. So this is going to make a lovely, soft, almost bread-like pastry, which is lovely. Okay, so 650 grams of flour gone in. Perfect. And a teaspoon of salt, and put the lid and measuring cup back on, and then we're going to knead the bread for 3 minutes. So 2 minutes of kneading time is equivalent to about half an hour of hand kneading. So we're doing a serious amount of kneading in 3 minutes here. So I will go away for 3 minutes and do something else that I need to do while the Thermomix does the kneading for me. So here we go. Kneading begins. I'll be back. 3 minutes of kneading done. And in that time, I took advantage of not having to do it. And I did wash up a few bowls and plates as I went along. So it's a really good way of keeping your kitchen a little bit tidy so you don't have to face all the tidying up at the end. Because again, the kneading's done for me. Okay, so the recipe actually says to lightly grease a large bowl with butter and set aside. Well, I'm using our Thermomat, which is also non-stick, and it has the thermal properties inside that will help conduct heat and help our dough rise. So I am just going to use that. Here is our beautiful dough, all kneaded and blended beautifully. To release the dough, again, I think I might have talked about this already, but you just turn the blades until you can feel that the dough falls through or down. So that's a really good way of doing it, and you can get the majority of your dough out like that. If you have a little bit left over, you can obviously just pull it out. If it's under the blades, I don't suggest you do that. I suggest you pop it back on the Thermomix, and then I just suggest you give it a really quick spin for about half a second or a second. I've just done that manually. Okay, and that will remove all your dough to the side, where you can pick up a piece of dough and just nice and easily and obviously safely, because the blades are crazy sharp. There, got it. Wonderful way of getting everything out, and nice and easily. So next step here is to shape the dough into a ball. So that's pretty straightforward. I'll just shape that nicely. And that's our ball. And so now we cover it up in this Thermomat, because as I said, that's going to conduct heat nicely and keep it nice and warm. So to pop this in a warm place to prove and double in size can sometimes be a little bit tricky depending on the time of year. So I have a really good trick for making your own proving oven. What I do is I get kettle and I put some water in a thermoserver, so boiling water in the thermoserver, maybe half full, and I pop this in the bottom of a cold oven, and I pop the dough on the top rack, and then I close the cold oven, and I leave that until the dough's doubled in size. And it is so much quicker than trying to find a warm space and go back and forth, because this literally heats up the oven beautifully. So I will do that and be back in a jiff. So while I am waiting for the dough to rise, I've decided to proceed with making my filling, so that's ready to go. So we're just going to go with loads of beautiful cheese. This is a cheese lover's dish. If you love cheese, you must make this. It's so, so good. Okay, we're going to go in with 200 grams of feta. Then there'll be 180 grams of halloumi. You can also make your own halloumi in the Thermomix, which is really easy, and I have made it before. I didn't this time, but I have made it and used it in this dish. And then the next one is 250 grams of mozzarella. Okay, so this step is a really important one to know, and I've mentioned it before. Stirring and chopping with the aid of the spatula. That's what this looks like. So we'll go to next step, and we're going to turn our selector on to speed 5. Around as we're blending. Great. So that was 10 seconds of chopping. And what we've got now is a beautiful mixture of 3 superb cheeses. So you'll get great texture inside these little pies. Okie doke. Well, that's all we need to do for the filling. That's actually done. And I think I might start something else, totally unrelated to my pies, while I'm waiting for the dough. It's going to be a cooking day today. Okay, I'm back, and our dough has easily doubled in size, beautifully doubled in size. I'm just opening it up now, and it is gorgeous. I hope that you can see this. I'm going to bring it all together, because when I open it, it kind of spreads out onto the mat, but they're non-stick mats, so you can literally just bring it all in together. Here, how's that? If I move it over, I'm hoping that you can all see this. So the dough will just come together beautifully. It's really, really nice. And there, you can see that you can just pick up these bits as we go. Straighten it back out. and form this dough into a nice circle, picking up all the leftover dough from the mat as you go. So crazy easy. Beautiful. All right, so now that I have this dough in some sort of, what would you call it, a rough log shape, I'm going to separate it into 3 relatively equal portions. Now, if you want to be really careful here, you can weigh each one. I have done that in the past, but I want to get through this a bit quickly today because I've got other things that I am making. So I'm just going to cut them fairly roughly. Okay, so that's 3 pieces, approximately even. I can tell by the weight, that even by picking them up, that they're not. It doesn't matter. Okay, so now we're going to cut these into 4 pieces, each piece into 4. So we're going to get 12 pies, and they will be really generous in size. You make a lot with this recipe. So what I tend to do is just have some in the freezer and ready to go. So I don't do this all the time, but you can see now we have formed a lovely mound of soon-to-be lovely, lovely pies. Okay, one sec. Okay, so I have covered the dough balls that I'm not using with a damp tea towel, and I'm still following the guided cooking, by the way, and it's up to the point where I roll out one of the dough balls into a rectangle approximately 30 centimeters by 10. Now, if you're not sure what that looks like, you actually have got measuring grids along the border of the Thermomat. So you can actually measure your distance as you go. So it's really easy. So once you've done that, once you've roughly got 30 centimeters by 10, which will sort of look something like this, you get 3 tablespoons of your cheese filling, approximately, of course, and you run it down the center of the pastry, well, approximate rectangle. I wouldn't say it's really accurate as far as rectangle goes. So then I just make a little, I guess a little row in the middle, a cheese row or a roll, and then making sure that I don't go too crazy with the cheese because the temptation is always there. You can wet the edges. It actually says to brush opposite sides of the rectangle with a little water and roll up the dough. So I actually have never done that. It would probably be a good idea, but I'm going to stick with what I've usually done. And I usually just roll from here, like so. Roll around like that, leaving the seam side on the bottom. Okay, and then give it a little roll to join it up. This is my version of the recipe, which has served me well, so I think I can safely recommend it. So roll it all the way, so we're closing the joins. Close this join here. Don't want any cheese to escape later. And then we just roll it up and pop your seam side down, and you can just fold over those edges. So here is what your first little cheese pie is going to look like. And like, you can make the hole a bit bigger if you like, and you can even out the thickness so it's roughly even all the way around. Gorgeous. So you repeat that 12 times, simple as, really quick. Pop it onto your baking tray. My baking tray is like that. I'll be back when they're done, and I will finish them off with a little bit of a glaze and possibly some seeds, and then they'll go in the oven. But anyway, I'll be back before then. So it took me about, I don't know, 5 to 7 minutes to do 12 of the pies. Now I just have some egg wash to do a little bit of a glaze that I mentioned. So this is just egg and water, and I'm pretty sure you can see from where you are, but I'm just going to brush over each pie nicely, fairly generously with the egg wash on all of them. And then I'm going to sprinkle over some sesame seeds. You can use poppy seeds, you can use nigella seeds, it's totally up to you whether you'd like the contrast or the same color. But this is a lot of fun, and I call this very therapeutic baking because you get to do a lot of hands-on things and see this come, like, I don't know, come together and create. All right, so here we have seeds going on. What I do with these, obviously if you were to follow the recipe, you would just pop them in the oven and you would bake them until they're done. But what I always do is I pop them in the oven as per the temperature of the recipe, but I halve the time, so I par bake them. So they're not ready when they come out, but I can then pop them in the freezer, or I can then have them ready to go till about when my guests arrive, pop them back in the oven for the last 10 minutes. So by the time we've poured some drinks, said hello, they're just finishing off for the last 10 minutes and they're superb. So I'll just pop them in the oven and par bake them for half the time, and then I'll let them go. Here they are, perfectly par baked. That means I have a couple of options. They're only half cooked, so I can let them cool and pop them in the freezer. So if I want to take them somewhere to somebody's house, if I offer to bring anything, I can literally just take these thawed and pop them in the oven when I get there, and then produce beautiful hot pies. Or I can now leave these aside until, as I said, tonight I will just pop them in the oven when I want them. Or obviously I could just continue the whole cooking process for another 10 minutes and then have beautiful golden ready pies. But here they are, thoroughly recommend them. They are a massive favorite in my house. Enjoy.